We're in.
All right, hello everybody. This is the second episode of Into the Void. We are your hosts, Nick and Dan. I'm not Nick, and that's not Dan, and we are two brothers, and we're gonna talk about some weird stuff. Today's topic is going to be on dreams, and that is quite vast of where we could go with this. Dreams have always fascinated me since a young age, and they just delved so much more into grander scale, more intricate concepts. I don't know about you, but like my dreams, they're either really quick or they last like a full on feature length film length type like
Rising action climax, falling action.
yeah, there's like a beginning and there's a storyline to follow
Yeah,
and like everything, and it just feels like I've been there for like hours, but it could have happened in like 2 minutes or even like seconds. But I think that's where it goes into like time works differently on the other side. So where to begin with dreams? Let's start off with the first bullet point of what we got from Nick.
yeah. I think first of all, I feel like obviously everyone could relate to it just because we all have them. Some probably have more than others. Some probably stay with you for whatever reasons. But it's really interesting because over the years I always researched like weird stuff, and it seems like scientists again. We got to point this out every video. We're not experts at all.
Nope.
We're just people that like find things interesting and try to do research on our own. But it seems like scientists and other, more important people than us apparently, um, they have no clue why we dream, what they are, or anything about it. And it's interesting that it's not only our species, but other species as well, like dogs dream, and probably other animals too. Um, but I mean, if you want to start with probably a movie that a lot of people heard of, but the obvious one would be Inception,
Mm.
and that it's a little bit more complicated. I felt like I kind of grasped it well in the beginning, um, but it's really interesting. So if you haven't watched Inception, go watch it. But it's the idea of you go inside someone else's dream, and it's implanting an idea in their dream. And when you wake up, you that idea just sticks with you. And I know I experienced that. You probably have too. And it's like you wake up and you're like, huh. And you go about your day and function kind of maybe subconsciously, but you have that thought, and your life might change around that thought. But the movie goes into a dream within a dream, and it's so fascinating how they go into how in dreams time moves slower. Well, so in real
Mm.
life, let's say it might seem like an hour in the dream, but in real life it's like 2 minutes, which is really fascinating. So that's why if you get lost, that's one of the main concepts. So if you go even further in a dream, then that gives you even more time. Um, but I think that idea of Inception, just implanting a thought somewhere, could really blow up. So, what do you think about that movie with Leo?
Okay. Okay. First off, Leo's number one. He is just a very, very talented and attractive man. Uh, it took me, believe, 3 attempts to watch this movie. The first 2 attempts, I fell asleep almost immediately because I started it way too late at night. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and it was like this movie is like a good 3 hours, but it feels like nine.
It
And
really does.
this movie, like I don't know what it was, just like okay, like I had this moment of like, okay, I need to be at peak like paying attention right now, and I am just
Yeah.
tired, and just having that like, yeah, this is not happening. So I just
It's not one
gave
of
up.
those movies you just like start halfway and you're like, I'll just catch on to it. You won't.
Even if it's like, oh, I'm gonna go get popcorn, I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. Like, no, if you're gone for like the first 2 minutes, you're done. Like that's what kind of movie this is. But yeah, when this movie came out, I think I was in ninth grade in high school, and everyone was like, "This movie is so confusing, and it's like it doesn't even make sense, and it's all over the place, and it's like you need a Neil deGrasse Tyson level mind to understand what's going
Mhm.
on." And I'm just like, "Okay, we're about to watch this." And the third attempt, where I finally stuck all the way through the end, I got it. I was just like, "Okay, we're all good." Yes, when it started go when just it just started going, like, just delving into one dream, into the next dream, into the next dream, and I think they went, like, 4 or 5 dreams deep or something like that,
Yeah, I gotta watch
and
again, but yeah.
I was just like, "I need to really focus on what's happening because if you, like" it's like, Interstellar again. It's just like you need to
Yeah.
just have the mental stamina to just sit down and watch this and not think of anything else. It just watch this, and it takes that level of brain power. That this movie was very intricate, very complex, and very just it's challenging to watch. And I think that's what kind of attracts me to it because I like concepts that really just not boggle the mind, but it kind of like it challenges you. It's
Oh yeah.
it's like picking a difficulty of like a video game, and it's just like you want to push yourself a little bit, and having these level of concepts like uh, who- uh the director, it took him like something like 9 years to develop this script, and you see that like it's something
Wow.
crazy. Like there was this was
Hmm.
a concept of this movie was just he just like started it and then he put it aside and then he kept going back to it over the years and then eventually like he had enough to be like, okay, I think we got we got enough to make a movie here. And you really see that this is clearly not a movie that was thrown together in just a room in less than a few hours. This movie like is just one of those it took years to develop.
Hmm.
And that's I think it really shows because this is the kind of concept that's it takes so much willpower and just such a vivid imagination to just conjure this level of idea because
Hmm.
dreams are just that. They're just so unexplainable and there's such intricate, complex visions almost or simulations that are beyond comprehension sometimes and beyond just description and trying to like dissect certain dreams of like, oh, every dream like means something or every dream has some kind of like hidden message behind it. Some of my dreams are just like you wake up and you're like, what was even that? But other dreams you're just like there is like just like time worked differently. And so
Hmm.
very rarely I had some nights where I fell asleep and I was in a dream and I fell asleep within a dream and I was dreaming twice. And
Yeah.
it was wild. Like it was just like
Yeah.
you
That.
woke up, but then you woke up again. And I'm just like, you can do that? Like it was just like, whoa. It's some dreams, yeah, it's something that we could all relate to. It's something that's so beyond words sometimes.
Mm-mm. Yeah, going into delving into it's so like you said, everyone can relate to it.
Mm,
And I feel like there's for whatever reason, it's like dreams have rules. And when they were explaining in the movie, one is like time moves slower in
yes.
dreams. that, like, it might seem like an hour, but it's really 2 minutes. They also go into like how either you feel that you drop or you jump and that wakes you up. So I guess that sense of urgency might actually, I just realized that might be the reason. It might increase your heart rate, and maybe that's you come out of REM. That's
Mm.
just a shot in the dark, maybe. I think that's kind of interesting. Um, but you might know this more than me, but it seems like you start dreaming when you're in REM. So I guess there's multiple levels of sleep.
Mhm.
The first is like dozing off, and I don't know how many levels there are, but the
Mhm.
bottom is where you get the most sleep is REM, and it seems like that's the only level you actually like dream at.
Mhm.
But I thought it was really interesting, like falling, and it like wakes you up, and like everyone knows that. Um, but I've done some research, and there were some people mentioning other things that I thought was interesting, like, oh, you can't tell the time on a clock in a dream.
Yes.
People's faces in dreams are like off. If you like look at your hands in your like it's blurry, and there's so many different things like that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I feel like I remember one dream I did read a clock, so that might have been disproven. I'm not entirely sure. Um, but yeah, going into what you were talking about of like a dream within a dream, that's just a whole different level of how
Yes.
like we don't know a damn thing about what dreams actually are.
Mhm.
Um, but it's even interesting because sometimes you realize you're in it, which
Yeah.
is called lucid dreaming.
Yes.
So when I first heard of that, I'm like, what's that about? And then people are like, you shouldn't do that because then you can't distinguish reality from dreams. I'm like, what? So I don't know how deep you could go, but I remember they were like, if you want to teach yourself how to become lucid in your dream,
Mhm.
you have to do things throughout your day. Like it could be either one, asking yourself, am I dreaming? Con, frequently throughout the day. So hopefully when you're in that dream, you ask yourself and then you're like, huh, I am. So you become conscious. Another one would be if like you're looking at your hands throughout the day, because if you do that in the dream, then your hands are blurry and you're like, what's going on? And that kind of wakes you up. And it's very interesting.
Mhm. I started dwelling. I started experimenting a little bit with lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming, if for those who don't know, it's basically you become lucid in a dream. What that means is you are aware that you're dreaming, and
Yeah,
sometimes you could kind of almost train yourself to do such things, such as like looking at your hands or trying to read a clock. That's sometimes you just find yourself in a situation where it's like you are completely unaware that you were dreaming, and sometimes you like look at a clock and it's like you have that conscious moment of like, why can I not read a clock right now? And sometimes it doesn't click with you that it's like, oh, if you can't read a clock, you're dreaming now. Like it just clicks automatically. That's not what happens to me. At least a majority of the time, I am just
yeah,
in school in my underwear, and I have a test to take, and I don't know any of the answers, and my future depends on this test that I am going to fail. So I'm just in that scenario that I'm just like looking at the piece of paper and I'm like, how am I supposed to take this test if I can't read the questions? And sometimes I wish it happened more, but it's like if you can't read it, then it's like, oh, then you just become smart all of a sudden. That you're just like, oh, that means I'm dreaming and none of this
yeah.
like none of
Never
this
happens.
matters. But most of the time you're stuck in that I'm going to fail and my life is going to suffer from it. Like you're just in that moment. But something like going back to Inception, I think they called it a totem or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think that's what they called it. And it's like something that you take or that you have on you at all times to just it was like a chess piece, like a pawn that they knew the exact weight of, or a loaded die or something like that. I noticed with some of the things, like when I started carrying like a pocket knife with me, if I just had that like on my person throughout the day, that over time I would just automatically like download that idea into my mind, and that I would go into a dream, and that I would like go for my knife or something, and it's there like in my dream. So it's like you kind of bring that with you a little bit. But as
Mhm.
far as like telling dreams, sometimes it's hit or miss with me, because it's not like, oh, because you're not like thinking of, am I dreaming? You're just in the moment. You don't know how you got there. And this test really matters.
Well, that's the thing. Like you said, it's in the movie. They also mention it. A dream just you're in it. It's not like it starts. You're just in a situation, and it's even more interesting because you knew it never happened, but you knew what happened prior to that moment. Like I know I have to get on a plane or I'm gonna miss it. But nothing happened before that. Or like I just got to the airport from a plane. You were never in the plane, but you realize you know there was one. So during like there's no beginning, there's no end. You're just in it.
Yes. But like some scenarios, it's like you know you just got off a plane, and that that flight was like 2 hours, and that now you're with people that you've never seen before. You don't recognize their faces, but you just know that, oh, these are my lifelong friends, that we've been on countless adventures, and like we've been together forever, and now we're just in yet another crazy adventure together, because that's what kind of friends we are. And it's like, and you wake up and you're just like, who were even those people? Or it's like sometimes you have people not even like friends in real life. It's just like someone you've known from like high school or middle school or even elementary school. It's someone that didn't even cross your mind
Mhm.
in years, and they're just in your dream. And it's just like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I want to go into that next question. Like, what do you think a dream actually is? So normally, first you might think that oh, dreams are just kind of a summary or an overview of like your day and your most recent thoughts or whatever. But like you just said, someone from high school, 10 years, however long
Hmm.
ago, haven't thought of them in years and they just pop up.
Hmm.
So I don't think they're recent thoughts.
No.
It's definitely I would say it's more subconscious or unconscious. Subconscious is the word
Yeah.
rather than conscious. It could be something, maybe a topic that you were thinking of before sleeping, or you were watching TV and that's kind of like the background. So it might have some implications of your thoughts, but there's that subconscious that like comes out of nowhere.
Hmm.
And there's also parts of like, why do they exist? So
Hmm.
before you were mentioning like simulations,
Hmm.
I could go as far, and we could dive more into this, but people think they could be simulations. Others could think they're different dimensions.
Hmm.
And others could think they're just random nothingness. Don't pay attention to them. And others like, no, there's meaning behind that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
continue.
That's a
Or
lot of.
sorry, real quick. Another example would be maybe they're like sights. Um, you're like looking into the future, like they're almost predictions. So, there's all those different ways to possibly look at it.
That's interesting that he bring up the predicting the futures type stuff, because sometimes this is wild. I don't know if it's with you as well or other people have this, but I just have this like internal, like very like once in a blue moon this happens type stuff. I will have a dream that like it's like so close to reality that it could 100% happen in real life. And it's just like a normal scenario, what have you, and that you would just wake up, you would think nothing of it. One of those dreams that that it just erases itself from your memory. And you go about your day like whatever, and somehow like it was a puzzle piece just like I when I had a dream I was working at McDonald's, and we used to work at McDonald's like years ago,
Yeah.
and I had a dream that I was just like getting fries and bagging it with like one of my coworkers, and that happened in real life. And it's not like a, oh, something similar happened to it. No, this like I was doing this exact thing. I was serving that customer wearing that face, and I put it in that bag with that coworker. And it's almost like it was like two, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like two parallel dimensions and they just merged. Or like it was
Yeah.
just like destined to happen. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's just like, and sometimes you'll have this dream like maybe a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few months, or like sometimes I'll have a reoccurring dream like over a year ago and I'll completely forget it. And then all
Mhm.
of a sudden, like that exact same situation happens in real life and you remember that dream. And that
Mhm.
a dream you just forgot it. Like you forgot it as soon as you woke up. But all of a sudden, like weeks, months, years down the line, it just like lines up for like a fraction of a second. Like
Mhm.
it, I don't know how else to describe it, but like it just happens like to a T. Everything lines up exactly how
Mhm.
it happened in the dream, and it freaks me out
That's
sometimes.
creepy to think that. That's basically it's like deja vu
Yes.
that like you lived it before. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
So
It's like
that.
predicting the future, but it's
Mhm.
at the same time, it's like time works differently on the other side. In that
Uh-huh.
time is say slower or time is completely altered completely, that it's not
Mhm.
just slower but time just doesn't, it's our perception or our comprehension of time is completely different on the other side. So we think,
Yeah.
oh, time's just, oh, slow mo activated and we're just slower. Like, no. Or it's like it's the future and the past. In the dream, there is no present, there is no past or future. It's just all over the place, like at all times.
Mhm.
So when stuff like that happens, it's just like, wait, was that dream that I had months ago that just lined up again? Did that just predict the future? Or
Mhm.
like it becomes, we're like two parallel dimensions. I need a much higher IQ to explain this, but this is what it feels like. It's just like, whoa. It feels like a, it's what our minds can kind of comprehend it as is just deja vu. But I think it's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is, I think I've seen this before. And it's like a reoccurring thing. Like, like,
Right.
no, this like happened. And it's like, but this happened in another version of me. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
It's
weird.
very strange. It's weird too because you're going through your everyday life like normal, and like it you then that time happens, that deja vu moment happens, and you like take a step back and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And it might not, it's even more, at least for me, it might, I don't remember it, but in that moment, I just feel like it happened before.
Yes.
Now, again, we're humans and our memory sucks, so I don't want to base it off of memory. But just that feeling is like, that's very strange. So that could look at different dimensions of how, because if you want to go into the fourth dimension, we talked about that on the last podcast, of that's time. There's no beginning, there's no end, it's just constant. So maybe you could argue, and like, it's not like you're wrong, no one really knows. Like, that could be the next dimension of how, because your body is three-dimensional, you can't go into the next dimension. But maybe your mind and your thoughts do. And nothing makes sense because it is another dimension. And I think that's very fascinating.
With my in my 20 about to be 26 years of living, I've developed two concepts of what I think dreams are. Dreams to me, the first concept that I kind of, and they kind of go back and forth a little bit of just like, oh, that makes more sense that you think about it, that it's like, oh, then that they kind of just stack, and sometimes they just overlap. I think the first concept that I kind of created for myself was basically it kind of dwells into like almost like religious belief systems almost, that it's your body is a vehicle or a vessel. Basically, our souls possess this vehicle, and we use this to basically exist in this dimension. And when we go to sleep, it's almost like you're not shutting off your computer, but you're putting it on sleep mode. So the computer is still on, but it's not at the same time.
Mhm.
So you're turning your body off, and now here where it kind of it kind of like goes off the rails a little bit. It's the brain is an organ. It's a muscle. It's just a physical, tangible thing. Like you cut your head open,
Mhm.
you could hold your brain like in your hand. It's a physical thing.
Yeah.
I think the brain and the mind are two separate things. So
Yeah.
what we think it's like, oh, like the mind and the brain are like the same thing, like something like that.
Mhm.
Like you have like a twisted mind, and they're like referring to like they're like pointing at your head, like this is all stuff that's going on in your head. But how I approach it is the brain is separate. So when you go to sleep, you turn your body off and you turn your brain off. And basically the
Mm.
mind or the brain is smart enough to think for itself.
Yeah.
So it's basically projecting images or some kind of simulations or projections, whatever you want to call it. It's basically projecting what is going up, because the brain is so complex and it's so intricate and just diverse and so vast and so beyond our comprehension that it's just it harnesses ideas and just data and just detail beyond like it just stores so much stuff. It's like a hard drive with just unlimited space. And I think the mind is smart enough on its own to project images to try to just I don't I don't even know, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to
You know
describe it
what's
in such a way that it just makes sense, but I think the brain and the mind work separately outside of your brain. So it projects
Mhm.
images, dreams, and it just happens to be connected to like I sound like a madman right now, but it's like your soul and your mind are like you. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like we're using our bodies as just vehicles, and when we die our soul just like leaves our bodies and like we just look like a shriveled up raisin, and it's just like okay, I'm done with this, and we just leave that behind. I think the soul and the mind are just who we are. So it's just
Mhm.
like when that's when you shut your body down and your brain down, your personality is living that simulation that your mind is creating. without your
Mhm.
body, but you just picture your soul as your body in your dream because that's all you know yourself to be.
Right, right.
That's the first concept.
No, I think I want to bring up something pretty obvious, but kind of crazy. That there are obviously images in your brain,
Mhm.
but how do we see them? Like they're actual images. We don't use our eyes to see them. I just realized that, and it's freaking weird.
Mhm. I
So I
feel
feel like you said, like the brain can't see anything.
right.
So, like you said, the mind is vaster than just the physical organ of the brain.
Yes.
So it's very so going back to what the mind portrays. So what a dream kind of is the unconscious is creating a physical representation of your thoughts.
Mm.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think because sometimes it's like you're doing something during the day and then you have a dream of like very similarly related to what you did that day, or like or you have a test tomorrow and that you just have a dream that you're taking that test and like you're sweating and you're very nervous, like that kind of like offset a little bit. But then sometimes you have dreams like you're doing something, you're going to work, and you just have the most normal job ever, and you come home and you have the most normal dinner ever, and you just watch a movie that is the most normal movie ever, and then you go to sleep and it's nothing but
Abnormal.
just the like stuff that you didn't even think of that day. Just gravity is weird. You can't scream. Like like I don't. Dreams are
It's hard.
freaking weird, man.
Yeah, it's weird to put into words. So yeah, we just went to a Jordan Peterson event, and he brought up the idea of dreams because the famous philosopher or psychologist rather, Carl Jung,
Mm,
and I believe to an extent Sigmund Freud, but they were talking about dreams, of how like it's your dream, like you had it, but you didn't conjure it. Well, no, you conjured it, but it's not like you intentionally created it. It just happened. You had no voluntary action of creating it, and you don't know why. It's just there, and
mhm.
it's fascinating. I'm struggling for words on this one because it's we can't even understand it. So one aspect could be it's what your deep thoughts are, and your mind is recreating them so you could see it. So when you wake up, I do feel like there's meaning behind dreams because it's your unconscious speaking to you. So it might be something you're dealing with, it could be something you're feeling, and you're just watching this movie describing what you're kind of dealing with. And I forgot where I heard this idea from, but every aspect of the dream is you. So if there's another person in the dream, that's you. If there's a thing, that's you. And if it's first person, sometimes it's third person, you're looking down at yourself. But every aspect within that dream is you because you are the dream.
Mm.
And I thought that was very interesting. Um, but when you wake up, it, chances are you probably forget most of it. But I feel like the moral stays with you. If you think deeper about it, like what does that mean? Because I remember growing up, like, oh, it's just a dream, and you kind of dismiss it. As I'm getting older, I'm like, what was the purpose of that? What was the meaning? And then I kind of like grab something from it. I'm like, huh, that's kind of interesting. And then I kind of grow from that.
Hmm. I think with some when we try to search for meaning for things, I think it relates back to trying to relate to someone. It's trying to connect to something. I think sometimes we have dreams or ideas or like when dreams are projected like over our eyes and we're just viewing it as a film as you described it. It's almost as if we're trying to we're trying to give meaning to something that wasn't supposed to have meaning in the first place because we try to give explanations to things that may just be there just to be there, and it gives us more of a comforting feeling to give it more of a meaning, I guess you could say. It's like if you were to hear, like you're sitting alone in your house and you just hear like a knock or something, like the house just there's like a noise or something like that. It's just like the first thing that probably comes to your head is, oh, this house is haunted. Like it's just we just have that go-to feeling that you just think something supernatural is whatever, when in reality most likely the refrigerator is making ice or the house is just settling. Like it's we need to give a explanation to something
To,
to make us feel better
yeah,
about ourselves, so it's just we can put a period on the end of that sentence. We could have like that's what happened and that's like
like that's the answer.
yeah, like we need an answer to something that wasn't supposed to have an answer in the first place.
Mm, that's a good point. I feel like humans do that a lot.
Hmm.
We have to search for something because I feel like we think very binarily. Like it's either a yes or no. Like if there's a problem, there's a solution, and that's not always the case. I feel like dreams might be like that thing that like they're just kind of not to say they're meaningless,
No.
but it could be just like there's there's no cause for it. And yeah, but I wanted to go into we mentioned simulations, and I remember reading, I think it was one article. It was how, so we evolved from like cavemen, right? And they were explaining the idea of how the brain is like a simulation. So think of back when we were cavemen, the brain would simulate, let's say, like a lion jumping out of a bush. So your brain would kind of train yourself of how to react so you can survive. So when that happens in real life, you're kind of ready. I'm like,
Mm.
all right, that's kind of very interesting. That's almost like your brain. Well, not, I don't want to say brain, like we kind of distinguish the two. It's like your mind being smart on its own, creating this scenario to train your body to survive reality.
Hmm.
And I thought that was very interesting. I'm like, all right, I don't know if this will ever happen, but what if we could not lucid dreaming, but what if we could control our like brain waves or something so we could train ourselves? So if you think even deeper into it, like let's say you could have soldiers dream about like a combat situation and that's how they train. They're never in danger. They're just in their dream, like training, like a training simulation, and then they wake up and they're like kind of, more able. And I thought that was very fascinating too.
That was a concept that they tackled in Inception when people they it was like an underground layer or something like that. It was people that there was just beds everywhere and just machines everywhere that people were just willingly sleeping. That they come here like 48 hours and they sleep like they're living in their dream world for like 2 weeks at a time. And he's like, oh, they come here to like rest or something. And the guy was like, no, they come here to like live.
Mm.
So it's like virtual reality in a sense. It's like
Yeah,
you're
sure.
leaving this boring, primitive, temporary, putrid, boring world, and you're entering a world that's more interesting. And it's sometimes, like in real life, sometimes you'll just be like limited to the a certain amount of things that you can do. It's like why we play video games. It's like I usually don't really play a lot of sports games or like racing games because
Mhm.
that's what I could do in real life. You play the games that you do like fantasy or stuff like that because
Mhm.
it's you can put yourself in a world that's just more interesting, more just more fascinating, more open. And sometimes
Mm.
you don't have the limitations that you have in real life in that virtual reality. So when you said going back to when you're having a dream and you see people or places or things, that those are projections of you, that's an interesting concept because it's like something. I remember I had a dream and I was being chased by this like little girl with needles for hands, and she she was, it was so weird. Like she was a two-dimensional drawing in a three-dimensional world.
Like
And
Doodle Bob from SpongeBob.
yes, Doodle Bob. But it was just this like little poorly drawn, by the way, just like little girl with needles for hands. And I was like, my first reaction was like, I need to run away from that because that ain't right, you know? So you're running, like whatever. And like I'm always in a house that's not mine, or it's a house that I've been in before, but now the layout is reversed. So it's weird.
Yeah,
Houses are weird in
that's true.
dreams. So I got to like the back door of like a house, and the door was locked, of course, because why would doors be open? So this like little like weightless like two-dimensional like paper thin girl is like walking after me like a Roger Rabbit, that like that scene where he's like flat and he's like walking like really weird.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's coming towards me and I'm just scared out of my gourd, and I'm just like, I'm gonna die right now. And she
Mhm.
like comes up to me, and usually like before, like someone's always chasing you and like they get to you, and before they kill you you wake up. This moment was interesting because she was like approaching me, and I was just like, this is a moment where I would wake up because I'm that scared. And
Right.
I had that thought to myself in that moment as she was walking towards me. And I had that I'm dreaming right now moment. And she came up to me and she was about to like, I don't know, like prick me or something.
Yeah.
So she like came up to me, and you think she was gonna like stab you, whatever, and she just came up to me and she just looked, because she was like 2 feet tall, and she's just looking up at me. And I'm just like I was terrified a second ago. And she just came up to me and she's like looking up at me, just like confused, whatever. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
I was supposed to die just then and I was supposed to wake up, but I'm still here. And I don't think
That's
I'm
really
supposed to
weird.
be here right now. And she's just looking at me confused. And like I just kneel down to her level and I'm just like, I know I'm dreaming right now. So that would make you a metaphorical representation of what I'm psychologically going through right now in real life. So, what are you that I'm so terrified of?
Mm.
And we just had this moment of I'm looking at a projection of myself, and I'm just
Mm.
like, what am I scared of right now? That it took the form of whatever you're supposed to be. So that was a an interesting dream for me of just like I was
That's really
supposed to wake up
fascinating.
and I didn't, and I was
Mm,
just like, wait a minute, that was one of those for me.
that was weird. Do you feel like you realized what you were scared of?
I think what I was going through at the time, I think because I think I was in her world and I was in her house and no one else was in the house. Like no one, it was just I invaded her house, but
Hmm.
she was in the house alone. And I think I had that like realization of like I think she's that fear of being isolated or just being alone or not feel
Hmm.
like being like a an outcast or like a reject to life. That she was just in a dark house alone and she was this ugly, weird, different from the rest of the surroundings kind of projection. She clearly didn't belong in the
Hmm.
dimension that she was currently in.
Hmm.
So having that representation into that was interesting, and it's that like I don't know, maybe that like it's like being scared of needles or something. It's like you think you're scared of it,
Hmm.
and it's like you get pricked, and it's just like, ow, oh, that's it. Like you like what were you scared of? You know,
Hmm.
I don't know. We can we're trying to put meaning to something that may not needed meaning, or we're trying
Hmm.
to give it meaning.
Huh. That's really interesting. So it was basically a physical representation of, let's say, isolation.
Yes,
That's
or at
fascinating.
least how I identify it
Yeah,
as.
yeah. That was really interesting. Of how you saw that thing as you,
Yes.
or like your problem. Like that situation, I feel like a lot of people, for whatever reason, that goes into so many psychological aspects because we're in a lot of situations, we're just being chased by something.
Mhm.
That's probably something we're trying to avoid or deal with in life. So, like you said, you noticed whatever you were scared or running from. And I feel like that's why a lot of people are probably, I would comfortably say a lot of people are being chased in their dreams. I could be wrong.
Mhm.
But it's very interesting how, real quick, like in that dream, you thought you were going to die. In a lot of my dreams, I believe, like, you're going to die in certain situations. In in everyday life, luckily, we don't have to feel like that. You're going to die frequently. That doesn't happen. And it's very interesting how in dreams that like always happens.
Mhm.
So then you could kind of relate that back to it. There's so many options, but it possibly could be a simulation because if you prepared yourself, then in reality, you would know how to avoid that death.
Mhm. I
Kind
th- with the concept of always being like chased by something, and usually when they like get to you, they're about to grab you, they're about to stab you, they're about to like do something whatever,
of.
and
Hmm.
you wake up. When I had that like that first instance of I'm about to die right now, and then I didn't, and I remained in the dream. I just had that like moment
Yeah,
of
that's really
like I
weird.
think I've surpassed that
That
feeling
fear.
of that fear. No, no, not even that. It's not that you've overcome the fear, like you had this like revelation moment. It's like the reason why you wake up from being scared is because the brain or the mind doesn't know what to do because it has never died before. So
That's a
it
good point.
abandons ship and you just wake up because your brain has no experience with dying. So it doesn't know what to
That's a
do.
really good
So
point.
you just wake up because it doesn't know how to process death. Like
Mm.
when you get freaking, like when you get shot or stabbed or something and you're just like dying, whatever, your brain just sends random messages to your body, and that's how you become contorted, whatever, and what have you, whatever. Spare you the gruesome details, but it's like your brain doesn't know how to process death or dying. So it just, I don't know, it just starts sending mixed whatevers to, because it's just like, whoa, what's happening right now? So when I met that moment of I'm supposed to wake up right now, and I slept through that moment of that fear,
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about me, that my brain knows what it's like to die. But that was kind of like a moment for me, a little bit of just like, oh, I think that was the realization that I'm kind of comfortable with death now, that I think people in reality are just
Yeah.
terrified of dying. And to me, growing up, it's just like, i'm not really I'm not afraid of it. I think it's gonna be kind of twisted to say, but I think it's kind of exciting in a way, that not like the whole idea of like dying or something, but it's just that people are so interested of what happens after we die.
It's
And
just the unknown. Yeah.
it's just like that you have that moment of those answers are finally revealed to you.
Hmm.
That's what I think it's like. That's the secret that like no one knows, and that
Yeah.
the answers to that are finally revealed to you. And that's what's like interesting. So that's why I think like in certain dreams that you kind of just live through certain moments that you're scared, that you're like, I would be waking up right now, and you don't, you sleep through it. That's that, like, you're okay with certain aspects of.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. I think that does show a lot about you and your mentality. Because I feel like I still wake up too
Mhm.
in death situations. So being content with that, that could be it. And it's a really interesting point that you brought up, that like your brain doesn't know how it's like to die.
Mhm. It's dreams are pretty wicked stuff. And as far as like after death and stuff like that, that would kind of lead into my second concept of what I think dreams kind of are.
Mhm.
I think, because I don't really believe in like a heaven and or hell per se. I think I don't see heaven and hell as a place, like going back to the void. It's not a place to be. It's more of a mindset. And I think
Mhm.
heaven and hell are like up here. Like they're not places.
Mhm.
Um I think as far as dreams, I think the second concept of mine would be you're kind of seeing snippets of what the afterlife is. Like you're kind of
Mhm.
peeking through a keyhole of what it's like on the other side. And
Mhm.
it's like time is different, physics are different, everything's blurry, everything's weird, nothing makes sense, like the fourth dimension.
Mhm.
So I think when you die, you just go to the next dimension or the next realm of some kind.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can identify that realm to be or kind of relate to what it might be is your dreams. So I
Mhm.
think you're kind of seeing what the afterlife is, just like little snippets. And I think heaven, I guess you could say, I think like they move very closely with our world, almost like two parallel lines, but they're so like so close. and
Mhm.
and it's like Inception, no, Interstellar, of like how he perceived the fourth dimension, that he saw like visions of what he saw in his life, when that's probably not it at all of what it was. I think
Hmm.
the dreams are just projections of what the afterlife is, but it is processed, like it's kind of minimized in a way for our minds to comprehend them. So it's like what heaven
Huh.
is, and it's kind of like stupefied down for us to
Yeah.
understand, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
still we don't understand it.
That's interesting. So it's almost like in that scenario, it's like your brain, or your mind rather, is stupefying so you could understand to the best of your ability what possibly the next dimension could be.
Mhm.
That's interesting thought.
Mhm.
That's exactly what Interstellar was doing.
Yeah.
Of how like the fourth dimension, or people above that dimension, was creating a third dimensional representation of the fourth dimension so you could understand.
Yes.
And that's kind of what your mind is doing in dreams. Because you don't get everything that's in it. Because most of it doesn't make sense.
They're probably like
Mm.
pure thoughts or like pure
Yeah.
feelings or what have you. And it's like these thoughts, whatever, they're like there, but then they put it into like a format in which our mind could comprehend,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
what we see dreams to be.
That's
S-
interesting.
So it's like still some like it almost doesn't translate perfectly.
Hmm.
So it's like pure thoughts of like metaphorical representations of what you're feeling right now, grief, pain, like you're scared of something, and it's putting it in such a way that our minds can understand what we're seeing, but just
Hmm.
kind of. So it's like
Yeah.
you have that, oh, what did that mean? Because your mind put it in a format in which we can understand it
Your
or
mind puts it
something.
in a PDF file for your brain to send it to you.
Exactly. But it doesn't
Interesting.
like render fully. Like the ping is too high or so.
Do you think, because I'm remembering a personal dream that I had, that
I know exactly
it
what you're about to say. It's like you
really,
have a dream and you saw me, and I'll be like, "Oh, I had a dream like that." And it's like, "Were you dreaming the same dream that I was dreaming?" And like
that's what's really
what
interesting too.
who like you was actually you in this, like did we tune into the same frequency if we go to bed at the same time?
I remember, I don't know what we were doing, but I was describing a dream that I had. I was like flying, and our dad, we did something like we were all together doing the same thing that day. So for whatever reason, that night I dreamed of like flying through mountains and like waterfalls and everything. It was fantastic. And then our dad said he dreamed, or supposedly he said he dreamed the same exact thing. I'm like, that's really interesting. So I wonder if you go through similar experiences, if you have the same dream. And even more interesting, I wonder if like you could be in the same dream, like in the same realm,
Mm.
in the same universe, you know?
Well, I think
If like
there's
you I don't think this is how it works. But like if you see each other in the same dream. I
mm,
don't know if that's how it works, because going back to the thought of everything in that dream is you. So I don't think anyone else can enter that.
mm,
They might be in that dream, but just because your subconscious knows that person, so he just like uses him to pop in to convey that thought or whatever. Um,
mm,
but what do you think? Because there are some dreams that are super vivid or even blurry, and like
mhm,
it's kind of just nothingness. But then there are others that are, you really think it's reality. Like
Yes.
you think that's what's going on right now. That not a chance in hell that that's a dream. So I remember I was driving. We were in a car with our parents, and I was like on my phone checking whatever. And we were on like a highway on a bridge. And I see something in the sky. I'm like, what is that thing? So we keep driving, and then I see like a spaceship in the sky. And I'm like, is anyone else seeing this? So I go on my phone. I'm like, I start looking to see if there's like headlines of if anyone else sees some spaceship. So we keep going down, and then I just see aliens like everywhere, like we're being invaded, like some Independence Day stuff. And then they like I really thought the world was coming to an end.
Mm.
We're gonna die. So then they like attack the bridge that we were on. It starts crumbling. So then we start falling. I thought it was 100% real. And I wake up and I'm like, that was crazy.
Mm.
So it's interesting because some you wake up and you realize like, all right, like that was kind of very dreamlike. Like I was flying around and like nothing makes sense. That was a dream. Then there's others that are like it followed the same physics we had. Like nothing
Mm.
was off. It was real.
Mm.
And it's interesting how there are those two types of different dreams.
Mm.
So going back to like if some dreams have a meaning, I mean I guess the aliens might have had some I was scared of something and the aliens were a
Mm.
representation of that.
Mm.
But it's very interesting how, those two details within the
Mm.
dream.
I think it's weird sometimes when sometimes you have dreams and your mind has the capability to render faces on people that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's like it, and it's some people would argue it's like, oh, maybe you saw their face on like a commercial, or like you walked past them in like like walking down the road or something. But like I'm like I have a very good like memory of like faces, maybe not names, but like I'll be like, I know that person, and that's it. Like just like their face is just very like just like it's like just embedded in my mind. And you have a dream, and it's like you've never seen this person before in your life. Like
Mhm.
how can your brain render a face that you've never seen before? Like usually it comes from like a reference of some kind.
Yeah.
I don't know. And uh I just had this other thought of like sometimes those projections, those people, whatever you want to call them, it's
Yeah.
like I had like a similar dream of like the world was ending, whatever, and we were like in this uh, like BJ's Costco warehouse, whatever, and people were um scavenging for like resources and stuff like that. And
Toilet paper.
I needed a I just knew I needed a dirt bike for transportation. And I was running for it, and another guy was running for it, and like I got there first, and he had like some kind of like a machete or something, and he was about to like kill me over it. And this majestic like goddess just comes out of nowhere and just slays this guy in such elegant format, and like he's dead, whatever. And I'm just like, that was badass. I'm like, that was so freaking cool. And I'm like, thank you, that really helped me out a lot. And she turns towards me, and no joke, she's just like, you're about to wake up right now. And I'm just like, what do you mean? And I woke up, and I'm just like, wait a minute.
That was
I'm
weird.
like, do they have like consciousnesses of
Oh,
their
that makes it
own?
even weirder.
That I'm like, how did she know? She
Yeah.
knew it was a dream? Like she's like, you're gonna wake up right now. And then my alarm goes off.
That's what's even more interesting. In it's like your body, unless it's like kind of having an internal clock type of thing. But it's like sometimes I wake up right before an alarm goes off.
Yes.
So maybe it's that unconscious internal clock represented as that goddess figure.
Hmm.
So that's very fascinating.
It's
But
crazy.
if it makes it even stranger, if those things have their own consciousness and they're not you,
Mm.
that's terrifying. Or
It's
like, it's like another world.
mhm.
That's freaking weird. But um if you want to start wrapping up, I want to give one more thought.
Mhm.
I heard this story, you might have showed it to me, from one of I think it was Nick Crowley,
Yeah.
the YouTuber. He goes over strange stories, same thing with creepypasta and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So he goes over this, and it was like, I forgot where, but it was like just a poster on like a street corner, and it just shows, call this number,
Yes.
tell us
I
about
know
your
exactly
dream.
what you're talking about. That was
And I'm like, wait, what?
there was a
So
name of it.
I would highly recommend people looking at it's freaking weird. So I forgot where, maybe like San Diego, Chicago. I don't know. It was a populated area.
Yeah.
So, and this was real.
Yes.
So someone called the number, and I don't even know if there was like an answer, or it might have been an automated voice message.
It was an answering
Like,
service.
yeah, it was like, thank you for calling us. And like, tell us about your dream. Then there was like a beep, and that's it. And you just tell them your dream. And I'm pretty sure everyone has the same exact thought of, that's weird. That's like, your dreams are like your personal space. To tell them to some, especially some stranger, it's like you're giving them a part of you.
Mm.
And I heard that, I'm like, that's like, who's listening? What are they? Why? And
Mm.
that was the creepiest thing, because it was so unknown. So then it disappeared for a little bit, and then it like came back. So oh man, what'd you
It,
think of that story?
that story was very inspirational to me because
Really?
that's such a concept that I love stuff that is so bizarre and so out there that actually happened, and it's something that tackles it. It's left so vague, and that's where I think the fear comes from.
It's
It's
so
just like
psychological.
I don't know if it was like I don't know where this number was. I don't know if it was like, oh, guitar lessons, and you call like you pulled the
Yeah,
tag and
yeah.
like you called it. It was like one of those like
On
it
the
was
light
like
bulb.
the dream experiments or something something
Yeah,
along
something like
those.
that.
And he's just like, thank you for calling the dream hotline, prefacizing whatever.
Yeah.
It's like after the beep, tell us about your dream, whatever. And it beeps and you tell your dream, you hang up, and it sends you like a message or something, and it's like, thank you for calling, like thank you for sharing. And like if you try to call them back or something, it's like it has no idea what you're talking about. And I'm just like, who what was this? And I'm just like, wait, wait a minute. I was just like, what was that? I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I don't know if that's like there was another video that I think Nick Crowley did. It's like there's this person that someone did like a sketch artist of, that apparently this guy, that
Oh
one
god.
guy did a description of. Apparently this guy is in everyone's dream in some way.
Oh god. This is I'm like getting freaked out.
Yeah, it
But
gets
yeah, yeah.
weird. This stuff is it's creepy because like sometimes you'll like sometimes there's like there was this guy, and like if you gave a description, it's like I saw him too, and it's almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street type deal. It's like
Yeah.
you saw a guy with knives for fingers too, and it's that
Mhm.
like whoa type of like
Yeah.
it gets scary like really
That's
quick.
oh man. So, in that story, did they actually show like the sketch?
It looked like every white guy ever. It was like it was like
It's pretty
from
vague, so like okay. I
like
feel
his
a
like
little bit better, but
his like eyes are like pretty far apart. He has like a very wide smile. I think he's like balding. It's just
Mhm,
like the just like a creepy looking dude.
mhm,
It like so like a lot of different people were just like I've seen that exact same person, and
mhm.
it's just like a wanted poster. It's like, have you seen this man? And like some people are like, yes. Like
That's weird.
in my dreams, they're like I've seen him too, and it's just like, what is this guy like a dream traveler or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, whoa, it's some wicked stuff.
Yeah, that's freaking weird, man. I'm creeped out.
It's getting really scared really quick. If it, yeah, yeah, if we could only choose what we dream about at night, oh, there would none of this would be happening. It would just be on a spaceship overlooking Earth blowing up, and I would just be surrounded by just countless freaking Japanese wives, and I would just be everything that's going on. But
Well,
no,
that's what's
I have to have a dream last night of being chased by you know that rapper? His name is like I- Rick Ross or something like that. He sang like Purple Lamborghini with like Skrillex or something, and he's like a really big dude.
oh, okay.
I was just being chased by
I
him
probably
last night for no reason, and I don't even listen to his music, so I'm just like, why am I being chased by this man?
But that's an interesting concept. Like, I wonder if at some point we're going to be able to create our own dreams.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
you could type into a computer, I want to dream this, and you do.
I
But
would
then,
much prefer if I had this kind of dream. Enter, and that goes somewhere, and then
your cerebellum.
like you just hook up. You know, when we have Tesla chips in our just surgically implanted in our heads, it's just like Wi-Fi signal. Okay, and just upload and just like, all right, good night, and you just have that.
Well, I think it's really, if we could one day learn how to control our brains, because I feel like our brain has a lot more power than we even realize.
Mhm.
Weird stuff happens. Like you could probably start.
And if we could like willingly choose to go in some kind of like cryogenic sleep where it's just like, yeah, I'm good. This life ain't this life is kind of boring right now. I'm gonna sleep for 2 days and live in dreamland for 3 weeks. People would be like, yeah, good night. Like
That's true. A lot of people do that. Yeah.
I would do that in a heartbeat. Be like, yeah, I'm good. And just be like, I'm gonna go up and into the spaceship real quick. Just stay up there.
That's freaking. That was a good topic. All right. Do we want to pick what the next podcast would be about,
Mm,
or we got to give it some thought?
maybe since we kind of hinted on it, maybe it could be like something along the lines of like the afterlife and stuff like that.
Okay.
Just a spitball of what we could possibly venture
Hmm.
out to next, because
Hmm.
everything just daisy chains here, and it gets scarier the longer you talk about it.
Yeah. I. What popped in my mind was like paranormal stuff.
Ooh, that's a good. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And
That
that could technically be linked. So maybe
yes.
we'll do it after life.
We'll get guest stars. We'll get
We gotta
we'll
call
get
Zach Bagans.
scientists. We'll get scientists. We'll get Zach Bagans on the line, and we'll MythBusters debunk everything right before your very eyes. Everything would just be all your questions solved right here on Into the Void. And that's what we do here. I'm not Nick and he's not Dan. This is Into the Void. This is the end of chapter 2. Dreams.
Until next time.
Until next time, everybody, stay weird.